Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Great Canadian Hockey Podcast, episode 6, that is. And before I hit the record button, I just finished telling Aidan that we're big time now because I finally bought my Zoom Pro subscription, so we don't have to do a bunch of 40-minute interval videos and chop them up because that sucks. But yeah, episode 6. How you feeling, Aidan? How's things?
Things are okay. Things are okay. Yeah, I mean, Zoom Pro, I feel like as soon as, we're getting interviews on here, that's when we don't want to be telling the person we're interviewing, like, hey, so this is going to kick us on in 40 minutes. So we're going to send you a subsequent Zoom link. I wasn't really a fan of doing that. So yeah, I mean, for me and James, I think we would have been fine just sending it with a bunch of little intervals. But we want to make this a podcast where we have guests. So I think it was a very good investment. Speaking of guests, we got one later on. James, it is. I'll tee it up now. I guess just say it off the top. Former Edmonton Oiler, former Buffalo Sabre, and current Blackfold's Bulldogs assistant coach and color commentator Mike Moller, who is going to tell us some really, really cool stories about both his time in the NHL and his time playing at the 1982 World Junior Hockey Championship. It is December, James, so it's exactly the time to start really getting into World Junior season. We will get to the selection camp group later on, and I'll kind of just let you take the lead right off the bat. The interview is lengthy and we don't want to waste any time getting to it, but we do have to round the bases first, NHL, and then we'll take a look at the World Junior camp roster. But starting in the NHL this week, probably the thing that made the most news was Tage Thompson on Wednesday night against the Columbus Blue Jackets. I've got something I wanted to ask you about, but first, I will let you take the lead on this one.
Okay, well, Tage Thompson, if anyone looked at any of his stat lines this week or has seen his stats all the season or has watched him play more than one game this season, they know why we're talking about him. This guy is awesome. Like, really, really weird comparison. Not even really a comparison. It's just the vibe I'm getting from him. Do you remember the Danny Heatley vibe when he was sick? I'm getting like the rock star vibe from Tage Thompson, like the calm, quiet rock star. And yeah, like he gives you that kind of Stamkos from the left circle on the power play kind of feel. He's 6'7". Like I don't remember a forward this tall that was this dominant. He's currently sitting at 41 points in 28 games. 21 of those 41 points are goals. Like he's really something. And my favorite player in the NHL is Ryan O'Reilly. I don't know if that's something we had covered before, but Tage was the big prospect coming back in that O'Reilly trade to Buffalo from St. Louis. And I don't know. I don't really ever remember thinking he was much more than like a B plus prospect who was like could end up being like a middle six forward. But he has arrived. He is more dominant than I think anyone, probably even him, could have ever expected. And yeah, it's just he's unstoppable. And the guy ahead of me in my fantasy league has him. And so I don't know whether to cheer for this player continuing to do crazy things or to be sad. So how do you feel about Tage Thompson, Aidan? And what's your question?
My question was going to be, did you listen to 32 Thoughts, the second episode this week where they touched on Tage Thompson and this Wednesday game? We can get to that in a second. My thoughts on Tage Thompson, you see these guys, you see this happen from time to time where somebody is a touted prospect. Tage Thompson put up big numbers at the University of Connecticut in the NCAA out of his draft year. Somebody who had obviously all the physical attributes to be a dominant player in the NHL, and him kind of put it together for the Buffalo Sabres. And this is kind of speaking to something that, I'd love to kind of take a look at other players that kind of fit this category, but I like players, who you go from a team like the St. Louis Blues to the Buffalo Sabres, and the biggest thing that changes really is your opportunity. And Tage Thompson has made good on his opportunity like crazy. Obviously, there was a positional switch. He was a right winger, playing for the St. Louis Blues and the Buffalo Sabres the first two seasons he was in Buffalo, and then Switching to center, he went off last season, 38 goals in 78 games. He's got 21 goals and 41 points in 28 games already this season. So I think it's, yeah, I think it's awesome to see somebody, really take advantage of the opportunity they're given. Reason I was asking about 32 Thoughts this week is Jeff Marek and Elliot Friedman had one of the more spirited debates I've ever heard them have on that podcast, James. And it was Jeff Marek basically saying Tage Thompson was within touching distance of the NHL record for goals in a game, and then the Buffalo Sabres didn't play him pretty much at all in the third period, played 3 minutes. Didn't want to run up the score on the Columbus Blue Jackets. So I kind of wanted your thoughts in a situation like that, Buffalo killing Columbus and, in Columbus, mind you, that probably has to be taken into consideration. Thompson's got 5 goals and 6 points going into the third period. The NHL record for goals in a game is 7. So Marek was saying that he was upset that Thompson wasn't given more ice time to chase the record. Friedman was on the other side of the coin. I just wanted to know where you stood on that. Like, was Thompson kind of robbed of an opportunity there?
I'm kind of on the fence on this one because I think this has to continue being a progress moving forward season for the Buffalo Sabres. I don't think anyone will really disagree with that. It's like good steps need to continue being made. This team needs to compete all year long. And if Tage Thompson were to overwork himself, if that's a thing, and end up injured, or someone tries to take his head off because he's dominating them. I mean, he's 6'7". Good luck reaching his head. But I think maybe playing it safe might have been a good idea. But also, I'm an agent of chaos, and I'd love to watch someone chase him around and try and knock him over, and I'd love to watch him score again. So, I see both sides of the coin. I'm taking a diplomatic approach to this one. How about you?
Well, I agree with something that Friedman said to Marek, which was, if Thompson had gone into the second intermission and said, "Hey, I want to chase this record, set me up." I think the coaching staff and the team of the Buffalo Sabres does that. I don't think Thompson is rested without that being okay with him. So if it is okay with Tage Thompson that he didn't have as much ice time in the third, then I'm impartial, is what it is. Whatever, really. But I think seeing records being broken is awesome. There's a reason so many people are interested in Alexander Ovechkin in the twilight days of his career. He's chasing that Wayne Gretzky record, and it's something that it's something that gives us a storyline always, right? It's now always something we're looking at. I think he's 99 back now as we record this. So, I think it's always cool to see records be broken. One of the most random games, just regular season game of a team that didn't make the playoffs that I remember vividly watching in my life was 2012 Oilers Blackhawks, and it was because Sam Gagner got 8 points to tie Paul Coffey and Wayne Gretzky at the Oilers record, in a big win over Chicago. So for me, it was just a random Wednesday night game in December. That's something that can be remembered because Tage Thompson tied the NHL record for goals in a game, or became the first player since I think the 60s to score 6 goals in a game, right? And that's just something that is a spectacle, and records being broken is never a bad thing in my opinion.
Completely agree there. Yeah, not too much more to say on that other than those red goat head jerseys, like the red line goat head jerseys, are sick.
Yeah.
Or not goat. Is it a buffalo? It looks like a goat.
I mean, I think it's the goat head is the name it's been given. It's not a goat officially. I don't think that was the idea, but it is it's been dubbed as such, I believe.
I think it's like a little bit of a double entendre too, because it's the goat out of Sabres jerseys, the greatest of all time Sabres jersey.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if that's intentional. Like you're right. I just don't know if that was the idea. Next thing in the NHL we want to get to, and I know it's another thing that you wanted to touch on, so I'll let you take the lead again. Patrik Laine and the Columbus Blue Jackets were on the receiving end of the Tage Thompson beatdown Wednesday night, and you wanted to talk Laine and CBJ, a team that might make good on your prediction that they are going to get a top 3 pick this year because they don't look very good.
Yeah, and I mean, just before I dive into Patrik Laine, you lose Zach Werenski for the year, and then Jake Bean looks poised to take a step up, and then he's out 4 to 6 months. So just bad blow after bad blow. Like you have guys adjusting different defensive systems. That sucks. It's going to take them a bit to figure things out, and this probably isn't the year. But I wanted to talk about Patrik Laine for a couple of reasons. For one, he's had a couple pretty solid games recently. I believe in the 14 games he's played this year, he's got 13 points. I don't know if that counts today. Today, did he have another 3 points? I'm pretty sure. I know he had at least two. Goodrow had a few. And for some reason, Jack Roslovic had 4 points. But cool. Yeah, I when I think of Patrik Laine, I'm always going to go back to after he was drafted and him and Matthews have that rookie season where they're both scoring 30 plus goals. And then his second season, he's got 44 goals. And correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't he have a 5 goal game as well?
I believe that was in the beginning of his third season, was his 4 goal performance. Laine, for the record, had 3 points tonight, a goal and 2 assists. So you can add that to his point totals for the season. Yeah. So Laine, yeah, that the season I remember from him was the sophomore one. Yeah, the 44 goal season with the Winnipeg Jets, and then the Jets make that 2018 playoff run, and he looks solid. Doesn't look like a world beater in those playoffs, but still looks like a solid player. And yeah, it's been weird for him since then. That's the best way I can describe the Patrik Laine career trajectory. Has just been odd.
So, so the question that I want to ask with Patrik Laine is, and the reason I brought it back to his early career was because early career, everyone was saying, oh, he's going to be doing Alex Ovechkin numbers and goals, which is a very tough thing to put on a very young player because development isn't linear. We've been over this before. Nobody's going to put up Alex Ovechkin numbers. Good luck. Like maybe a year or two. Sure. But that's not going to be a career for a normal person. We're talking about the greatest goal scorer of all time here. And I just want to know, what is the realistic ceiling for a Patrik Laine season nowadays? Think in the next 5 years, what's the most goals he's going to be able to score in a season? That's a very odd question.
Well, think about Tage Thompson. Think about Tage Thompson, all the potential in the world for Tage Thompson. And it doesn't work out in St. Louis, doesn't work out on the wing, period, moves to center. That is absolutely 100% not the solution for Patrik Laine. He should not play center. He's not a center. He's not a defensive player whatsoever. However, with that being said, last season, 56 games, 26 goals, 56 points. I think he could easily have a good season. You got Ken Johnson on that Columbus Blue Jackets team. You've got Johnny Gaudreau. You play Laine with Gaudreau and Johnson per se. Yeah, I do not think for 40 goals, 42 goals, 80 points is out of the question for Patrik Laine. I think if you're talking, what's a Patrik Laine season that the Columbus Blue Jackets should be satisfied with as far as, okay, he had a good season production-wise, I'd say between 30, 35 goals and then between 65, 70 points. But his ceiling is a different answer for me, right? Because again, this guy still has all the tools. He still has the skill set. He still has the shot. He still has the IQ. He still has the ability to put the puck in the back of the net. That to me would equate to potentially another 40-goal season. I actually will go as far as saying I think he's hit his career high in goals, but not points. Career high in goals right now is 44. Career high in points is 70. Those did happen in the same season. So if I had to hazard a guess, I think Laine has set his career high in goals. So he's not going to beat 44, but I think he does break 70 points, especially if he has the opportunity to play with Gaudreau moving forward in Columbus, Kent Johnson, maybe Cole Sillinger, etc. Let's see what they draft this year. We'll see if he's a forward. See if his name's Fantilli or Bedard. See if he plays with Laine, right? So it's going to continue to he's going to continue to have opportunities on a still relatively young Blue Jackets team that he's under contract with until 25-26.
Maybe his name's Michkov.
Maybe.
Maybe they take the patient approach. Who knows? But we could get into draft stuff another time before we nerd out too hard. I know you want to talk about some World Junior news. What do you got on the docket?
Yeah, well, the National Junior Team Selection Camp roster is out. They played a game today, beating the U Sports All-Stars 5-2. Adam Fantilli, pair of goals, including a very, very pretty one. Fantilli, one of two skaters on that Canada team right now that are 2023 draft eligible. Everybody else has been drafted, and the Team Canada is getting a good little bit of help from the National Hockey League teams, aren't they? Whoa, okay, Shane Wright. We talked about that. We expected that. Seattle confirming that he is sent to the World Juniors this year. Okay, a little bit more help. Oh, would you look at that? Brandt Clarke, another player that we kind of expected. He had that conditioning stint in the AHL just like Wright did. So Clark's going to play for Canada in the end of the month here in Halifax. And the one that I didn't expect, Dylan Guenther is going to return to play for Team Canada again this year. Guenther, a 9th overall pick of the Arizona Coyotes, is a very capable player. And I was looking at this list, James, and genuinely, there is 10 players on this list that I would put money on having the potential to win the MVP of this tournament. This looks like a very capable Canada team. We say that, it seems like at least most years it looks obviously like a capable Canada team. There are some years the team is not as strong as others, and there are some years that a team that didn't look as strong ends up winning, and then some years a team that looked like they were going to dominate doesn't win. That happens quite often. But this Canada team, Bedard, Fantilli, Logan Stankoven, Shane Wright, Brennan Othman, who we've talked about on this podcast, this is a loaded squad, and this is going to be fun to watch, I think.
I'm so scared to bet on them. I want to so bad, but every time I bet on World Junior Super teams, that's when the upsets happen. So I'm not gonna bet on it, because if I do, I'll jinx us.
Yeah, I remember I was more confident about the 2021 Canadian World Junior team than any, and the confidence was seemingly well placed through the first 6 games of that tournament. They walked the group stage, walked the knockout stage until the gold medal game, absolutely annihilated Russia. Going into that gold medal game against the States in 2021, playing a U.S. team that had lost in the preliminary round to the Russian team that Canada had just dummied in the semifinal. And Spencer Knight makes every single save he needed to, and Trevor Zegras and Alex Turcotte score the goals in a 2-0 U.S. win. And, maybe we'll turn the clock back 2020, the year before. I had my money on the States that year. I thought the Americans were the best team on paper. Canada beats them in the preliminary rounds. The States end up going out in the quarterfinals to Finland. Canada wins gold over Russia. Another example, 2018, Team Canada, that to me, going into that tournament, obviously you had Cale Makar on that team. That to me on paper, even looking back, was one of the weaker World Junior teams. And they won gold. So we're looking at this roster saying, oh, Brandt Clarke, Kevin Korchinski, Olin Zellweger, Carson Lambos in the back end, oh, the Bedard, Guenther, Wright, Othman. Oh, wow. And that's well placed because all these players have talent, but at the end of the day, these players are young, and young kids are unpredictable. So as much as, I'm saying I've got faith in this team, I think they're solid, and I think they have the best chance to win this trophy. At the end of the day, it is something that could go in any direction.
Most definitely. And it's always worth noting that the World Juniors are so special because they're kids, right? Like, they're teenagers. They're new to this level of pressure, and this level of emotional pressure more specifically, and anything can happen. And that's the best part about all of it. So I'm stoked to see it. Should we head to the interview though? I think I'm ready for this one. This was a lot of fun. My hockey nerd self had way too much fun listening to Mike Moller. It was incredible.
Yeah, so background on Mike Moller, 41st overall pick of the Buffalo Sabres in the 1980 entry draft. He touches on that. Played for the Buffalo Sabres from 1980 until 1985. Played for the Edmonton Oilers between 85 and 87. Played in the AHL for the Rochester Americans, Nova Scotia Oilers, and Binghamton Whalers. 12 games for them in 89-90. And then went into coaching, coached with the Red Deer Rebels of the WHL level. Took some time away from coaching high-level hockey to coach his kids through the minor hockey system. Then got into coaching high-level hockey again in U18 AAA, and now is coaching Junior A in the Alberta Junior Hockey League. He provides my color commentary on the broadcasts and is very good at that, but this interview was fantastic. He talks about all of those things and talks about his time in the 1982 World Junior Hockey Championships, which is probably my favorite part of the interview. So it is Mike Moller, and it's coming up right now on the Great Canadian Hockey Podcast. Okay. Well, I know you and I chatted a little bit yesterday about it, but I wanted to kind of start with you and what you're doing now and then work backwards. We'll work into how you got into coaching and then your NHL career and then talk about the World Juniors beforehand as well.
Okay.
So yeah, I just wanted to ask you, obviously you are an assistant coach with the Blackfolds Bulldogs. I wanted to ask, I know you coached U18 AAA beforehand. What was the steps you took to start your coaching career out of your playing career?
You know what? I don't think you can have steps in my case without having played. I think it was a natural progression. Playing hockey, coming up through minor hockey and then through junior and then, eventually play professional hockey. All the way along the line, you end up having coaches coach you. And I think you take a little bit from every one of them and it becomes a little bit of your mantra and how you want to coach and what you think will work and be successful with depending on the age category or the group that you're coaching. And I was fortunate enough, coming up, like to say, even in minor hockey, I had some terrific coaches that, spent the time and energy to help me become the best player I could be. And then moving into junior, it was the same thing. By the time I got to the NHL, some of the best coaches that I've ever been, I had an opportunity to play for. So I feel really gifted. Fellows like Scotty Bowman, Glenn Sather, Dave King, Roger Nielsen. These are some of the giants. Mike Keenan, I played for Mike Keenan as well. I mean, these are some of the giants, coaching in the NHL. So, and everybody was different. At certain times, different coaches had different ways to motivate or to encourage you to play your best hockey. Some of those things maybe aren't the same way that we do now, and that's good because that means we're progressing and we're getting better at hopefully purveying the thoughts and structure that we need for our players to have. But like I say, so having been a player for some coaches, eventually when I retired from the game professionally, I was about a year out of the game and I coached in the Western Hockey League for the Red Deer Rebels the first 3 years with a fellow named Peter Anholt, who I learned a ton from. You think when you play the game, you kind of know, well, I know how to play, I know how to coach. I mean, it's just like playing. It's not. It's not. When you play, you're kind of worried about you, yourself, and I, and how you play and how it fits in with the team. When you're coaching, it's making sure everybody, all the 18 or 20 players that you have fit in. So there's lots. I will say this, and this bunch of us players that have played at different times, we'll talk. We would have been way better players had we coached first. Had we coached and understood some of the different structures and some of the different schemes that you need to do in order to play your position or how to beat an opponent or how to break down an opponent's tactics on you. I mean, when you play the game, you just play the game. And yeah, you learn the game, but you play from a player's point of view. Being a coach, now looking back, oh man, I'd have been a whole bunch better player if I'd have been a coach first. But that's just the way it goes. After the 3 years of coaching the Western Hockey League as an assistant coach, I had two young boys that were getting into hockey and getting into minor hockey. And, I left coaching junior to go back and coach minor hockey. And so I coached from basically my boys were 6 years old all the way up till they were 17. And it wasn't until after that I got involved with Doug Quinn and Rob Hamill and Pete Freestad and Al Parada and coaching the U18 team, the Red Deer Optus Midget Chiefs, and have some success there. But you know what? I know lots of players don't go into coaching. I know there's lots of people that are coached that never really played or even played at a high level and have been very successful. I just think for me, it was a natural progression. If I played at some point, I want to give back and hopefully help some people improve their skills and get to the next level, whatever that is.
So my one thing you said really stood out to me there. When you said you think everyone or yourself at least would be a better player if they got to coach first, but obviously that's not the way it's going to go, right? It's almost backwards, but it would make everyone a better player. Think back to when you're 17, 18. Think about when you're going into junior, playing in junior. How do you feel your career would have progressed differently if you might have had some coaching experience or if you had that insight going in?
You know what? I just think understanding your role within a team all the way through minor hockey as a player, your whole goal is to play at the best level you can, which means you're always trying out. Every year you're trying out. And whether it's Adam or novice or peewee or bantam or midget or junior, you're always trying out. And when you're trying out, you're trying to be the best player you can be. And then once you make a team, it's like, okay, now I made the team. Now I got to try to fit my skill level within the team and make our team better. I think as somebody who maybe had some coaching beforehand, I think you would understand how you need to play and what your play can do so that you can make teams. Understanding your role defensively, understanding your structure, especially on a forecheck or a back check or whether your own zone, what your responsibilities are. Most of the time, you just play, right? You're not so much follow the puck, but the puck kind of dictates how you're going to play. Whereas I think as a coach, you're always very aware of, okay, I know the puck's over here, but where do I need to be in the right position so when the puck does come this way, I can do that. One thing for me, growing up through through minor hockey, I was a gifted player in that I had some skill level. I understood the game pretty well. I was a student of the game, and I was always a leader on my teams, either a captain or assistant captain. And even though I wasn't a coach, I like to feel that there's some of those things that you do as a coach, as far as motivating players or helping a teammate who's down, or kicking a teammate in the butt and tell them to get going. I think as a leader, those are some of the things that you take into coaching as well too. So but yeah, there's no doubt I'd have been a better player if I'd have been a coach before I started playing in junior hockey or even moving to pro, without a doubt, for sure.
So I kind of did, want to, as I said, work backwards.
Sure. Yeah.
And I know, again, we chatted about this a little bit yesterday. I wondered if you had brought one. I just, 2 full seasons in the NHL with the Buffalo Sabres, and you played with the Oilers as well, played seasons with the Rochester Americans and the Nova Scotia Oilers in the AHL.
Yep.
Out of all those seasons you played professional, can you give me maybe your favorite story out of your career, the one that you kind of tell as a, I got to do this, this was the road trip that this happened, or just even just your favorite season?
Yeah. You know what? I don't think, as a player, growing up as a minor hockey player, I think every player dreams of playing in the National Hockey League. And so I get drafted by the Buffalo Sabres. I go to the training camp. I play some exhibition games, but then I go back to junior in Lethbridge with the Lethbridge Broncos, and I get off to a really good start that season. And Buffalo Sabres top right winger at that time was a fellow by the name of Danny Gare, and a really good player at that time for Buffalo and in the NHL. He gets suspended for 3 games, and that was back when the NHL teams could pick players out of junior to come up and replace a player without having to go through injuries or through the minors, or the American Hockey League, to pick a player. Buffalo called me up. I fly to Buffalo. I'm going to play a game there. And then Buffalo happens to be coming out to the West to play Edmonton and Calgary. And so I'm going to play the game there. I'll play in Edmonton, Calgary, and go back to junior. So I fly into Buffalo, and I'm there, and I know most of the guys from training camp, but I'm pretty excited. My first NHL game, and it wasn't something that was going to be on national television, but of course, for me to play in my first game was pretty exciting. I was only 18 years old. I was an underage. So we're playing the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, for those of you that aren't in my era or vintage, Chicago Blackhawks were one of the original 6 teams, and going back to Bobby Hall and Stan Mikita, Tom Lysak, but their goaltender, one of the best goaltenders ever, was Tony Esposito. And when I was playing minor hockey, and if you were ever playing road hockey or out boot hockey and you play goal, you were Tony Esposito. That was just what you were. You were Tony Esposito, Tony O, as we used to say. So we're playing Chicago, we're out for warm up, and we're doing warm up, and I'm out doing my thing, and I line up, and all of a sudden it dawned on me. I look down the other end, and Tony Esposito is playing goal for Chicago Blackhawks. And I geek out. I was like, that's Tony O. I'm playing with Gilbert Perreault and Schoenfeld and Rick Martin and some great players in Buffalo, but Tony O is playing net for them. So I slide up beside Gilbert Perreault, who we call Bert, that was his nickname, and I go, hey, Bert. He goes, what? Tony O is playing net for them down there. And he kind of looked at me deadpan and went, yeah, he plays for them. about 15 years now. Basically, like, okay, yeah, get over it. We got a game to do. Yeah, it's Tony O. I know you're geeked out, but and it was all of a sudden, oh yeah, right, yeah. I knew that. Anyway, so I like to tell that story because even though I was playing my first NHL game and it was a professional game, and I got an assist that game and we won and all that, I was still a kid. I was still a kid playing hockey, playing with and against my heroes. And you know what, it was kind of a neat thing. And I tell that story to kind of put in perspective that, you know what, I think in every boy that played hockey, there's always a dream of playing your first NHL game. And I was fortunate enough to be able to do that and play against one of my heroes, and Tony Esposito, even though I wasn't a goaltender. That was a big deal. How's that?
Oh, Mike, that was awesome. That's that's a pretty crazy story. I can't imagine that. I think if I were to end up there, I'd probably be pretty starstruck. If I saw Tony O at the other end, I'd probably be frozen.
Yeah, and you know what I mean. As moving through that, I got a chance to come out and we played the Calgary Flames, and then moved on and played the Oilers. Of course, the Oilers in the early 80s, and we're not winning Stanley Cups yet, but they were about to win Stanley Cups. And of course, Gretzky, Messier, and Curry, and Coffey, and Fuhrer, and all those guys were there. But for whatever reason, it was about my childhood, and that's what I was starstruck about. Even my first game in Maple Leaf Gardens, as a kid watching Hockey Night in Canada, you watched either Montreal Canadiens or you watched Toronto Maple Leafs. And so to go into the Maple Leaf Gardens for the first time, where Daryl Sittler played, and Lanny McDonald, and Mike Palmateer played goal, Boyer Salmon was the defenseman. I mean, that was pretty neat too, to see and have a chance to see some of these buildings when it's your first year in the league and you're going around. Once you do it a few times, it's not that exciting anymore. But the first time through is pretty good.
So, Mike, I actually just look at the roster for the Buffalo Sabres for your first year, when you got to play 5 games there. And I noticed that Lindy Ruff was on the team, and we talked about coaching a bit. And I want to ask you a bit about him as a player, and more specifically, is that someone at that time you could have seen having an extensive coaching career? Because this guy became one of the greats of the game in coaching, and he's now a household name in that area.
Yeah, and still is. Yeah. You know what? My relationship with Lindy went back to the fact that he was a Lethbridge Bronco, and so was I. And so I had been to a couple camps and came back and played midget AAA here in Red Deer. And the year that I made the team was the year that he got drafted, and he was supposed to come back as an 18-year-old. He makes the Buffalo Sabres as an underage. So not only do we lose, basically was going to be our captain that year, but we lost a really good player that year. So when I got called up, there was an affiliation there already. He was from Warburg, Alberta. I was from Red Deer, Alberta. We both were with the Lethbridge Broncos. Lindy, the one thing, and it's true. You have a look out, through the history of great coaches. Not all of them, or not a lot of them, were great players. I mean, it just doesn't seem to correlate. But you could see Lindy Ruff at that time. He had those kind of abilities. He was a leader, even as a youngster. When I first got called up, Lindy was a mainstay. His voice in the dressing room was strong. He was a team guy, team first. He would do whatever the team made. I mean, he was basically a defenseman that played forward, that played defense. He was a prankster. I can't, there's a couple of jokes that he played on the different players in the team I actually can't say, but he was one of those kind of guys. He kept everybody loose. He kept everybody, I mean, I'll tell one joke on Lindy Ruff. If you were ever late coming to practice, ever late, like, and things happen. You're in Buffalo, there's traffic, they got snow down there, and you come in, you're flying in late, but you're going to make it. You're coming in, your clothes are off, you're getting your dress, and you're getting your socks on and shin pads, and you go to put on your skates. He's cut your laces. Now, if you can imagine, you got to take out the laces that are cut and then redo the laces. This takes time. And it was always kind of a thing. And no matter what happened, if you were late, of course, everybody knew why you were late. And even the coach, Scotty Bowman, you come out on the ice and everybody started to do laps and you're running late. But that was Lindy, right? It's like, hey, don't be late. You're late. Something's going to happen. He was famous for putting water in your shoes and then putting out in the cold so they froze. So then when you tried to put your foot in the water in the shoe, there was ice in the shoe. You couldn't get your foot in the shoe. Anyway, that's Lindy. Yeah, he was great. I tell you what, the one thing with Lindy is I think one of the guys, he made everyone that he played with and every one of the coaches, he makes them accountable for who they are and what they are. If you're a goal scorer, you need to score goals. If you're a checker, you need to check. If you're a defender, you need to defend and be the best that you can be in your position. And then we will be the best. The second thing about Lindy Ruff is he's smart enough to understand that sometimes you got to let the thoroughbreds run a little bit. And I think you're seeing that this year with the New Jersey Devils. They got a young, exciting team and they go. I mean, it's as soon as you get the puck, they are coming. And although there's structure there, and although maybe they play a little bit looser than a lot of teams, but if you got the players to play that way, you got to let them go. And you got to understand what kind of players you have in order to have them success. And I know earlier on in the season, it looked like things weren't going. And then now I watched when they come through and played both in Calgary and Edmonton, the Jersey Devils come through, they were outstanding. And a lot has to do with Lindy. He's given those kids confidence. You know what? Hey, we're going to make mistakes, but we're going to go and we're going to put pressure on the other team, and we're going to make them make more mistakes than us. So, Lindy Ruff, he's a great guy. He's a great coach. He was a great teammate.
That's awesome. That's I know James said your last answer was amazing. I think you one-upped it because talking about Lindy Ruff and talking about him being a prankster is hilarious. Just in hindsight, him being such a decorated coach now, thinking about that in his playing days that's an awesome story too.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I did want to ask Mike, just so I wanted to ask about your draft year. So you're drafted in 1980. You go to the Buffalo Sabres in the second round. So you're going to a Buffalo Sabres team that has had 10 years of the French connection line. So just tell me about when you get drafted. You know you're going to Buffalo and you're recalling watching that Sabres team for all those years and watching that line. Of course, you said you played with Gilbert Perreault. Just kind of what's going through your head as you get drafted by that team with, that line that's still fabled to this day.
That year of the draft was an unusual year because it was the first year that the NHL had done an underage draft. Up until that point, you had to be, 3 years of junior at 19 and then going on. But the WHA had come in and challenged that and said that, you can't deny 18-year-old kids from being picked. So my draft year, I was a good player, but I was just my first year in the league. I became a better player through junior, but what ended up happening, it started in the first round. The New York Islanders took Brent Sutter, in a high teen pick. And then Troy Murray went to Chicago, who was from St. Albert. Him and I were friends. And then all these NHL teams decided that if we don't start picking these young kids, even though they're not quite as good as some of the 19-year-olds, if we don't get them now, we won't get them next year. So I get picked in the second round by Buffalo. I was still in school that day. I'd gone to school that day of the draft. The draft was in Montreal. I'm in school. The phone rings in the class. The teacher said, "Hey, Mike, phone call for you." And that's never a good thing. It's like, oh, who's calling me or whatever? What's going on? And it's my dad. And he got a call from the Buffalo Sabres saying they selected me 41st overall in the second round in the NHL draft. And he his words were, "Get your brother and get your butt home because there's going to be people calling and, we're going to have a celebration." Anyway, the point was I had talked to some different teams before the draft. I talked the Toronto Maple Leafs. I talked with the Minnesota North Stars. I had talked with the New York Rangers had talked to me. I hadn't talked to Buffalo. It was right out of left field for me. I mean, all of a sudden the Buffalo Sabres, I didn't even know they even saw me play that year. And obviously they did, but the realization came through right away that myself being a forward and being an offensive player to look at Buffalo and go, oh my gosh, the French connection. René Robert, Rick Martin, Gilbert Perreault, I mean, they had been good for a long time. They'd gone to the Stanley Cup Finals, lost against the Philadelphia Flyers, I think in '75. But this was 1980. They still were kind of intact. Unfortunately, it wasn't too long after my draft that René Robert, I think, went to Detroit, and Rick Martin had some injuries, but Gilbert Perreault, I got a chance to play with him for a number of years, and he was terrific. You know what? That was back when the Lions had names, right? They're the French Connection line. There was the gag line in New York, which was goal a game line. It was Jean Mattel and was centered that line back there. And even it was the Legion of Doom line with the Philadelphia Flyers, with Eric Lindros and Jean Leclerc and that. I mean, there seemed to be lines got together and they were there for the year or years. You don't see that much anymore. I mean, all coaches now, they're always wanting to mix and mingle, and we'll have these two guys play together. I mean, last year's line in Calgary, Gaudreau, Tkachuk and Lindholm. I mean, that line should have had a name. I mean, that was as good a line as there was in the league last year, and yet there really wasn't that. Anyway, but yeah, I was pretty geeked, pretty pumped to go to Buffalo and get a chance to play with the French Connection line. Absolutely.
That's awesome. And yeah, I think we did want to go to the World Juniors. James and I are both just, growing up, the World Juniors was actually kind of that was my path to hockey. I grew up in, I was born in Canada. I grew up in a Portuguese family, so it was always soccer. That was kind of the family thing. But watching the World Juniors was kind of my draw to the sport, and that's what got me into it to begin with. And you represented Canada in the 1982 World Juniors. That was the first gold medal that Canada ever won at the World Juniors.
Yep.
So I wanted to ask you both about the tournament and just about the feeling of kind of hoisting the trophy for Canada for the first time.
I'll give you a little bit of background to that particular year. Before that, Canada hadn't really done an all-star team. The one year it was held in Montreal, I think in '76 or '77, and Gretzky played, they had taken a bunch of Ontario Hockey League players and a bunch of other players and put them together, and they came through, and I think they won the silver medal that year, which was great. But after that, the tournament was held at Christmas time, and right in the middle of the hockey season for the junior leagues across Canada, the Ontario League, the Quebec League, the Western League, and even the junior A leagues. And so what would end up happening, whoever won the Memorial Cup the year before, they would send them the following Christmas to the World Championship. And they would typically bolster them with some players, because if you won the Memorial Cup, typically you had attrition of guys that would graduated and gone on, to the NHL or were done junior hockey. That wasn't usually the best team the following year. Now, so the year before, the Cornwall Royals went, who were a good team. Dale Hawerchuk, Scott Arneal, that was a good team. But they finished 7th in the World Junior Championships. If they finish 8th, they get relegated to the B division. So from that thing right through to that summer, Canadian Amateur Hockey Association, which is Hockey Canada, said, you know what? No more. We are going to pick the best players from across Canada. And we don't care where they're from. They could be playing in the Western League, Ontario Quebec League. They could be playing in the NCAA. They could be playing in Alberta Junior Hockey League or Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League or BC. Wherever they're from, we're going to have a camp and we're going to pick the best players and we're going to send a team. Now, the hard thing about that was all the pundits had said, well, you can't send an all-star team of guys all over the country, come together for a week and have any success. It won't work. It can't be done. Can't be done. Well, they decided, nope, we're going to do that. So that summer, there was a camp in Kingston, Ontario. Myself and 60 other players from across Canada, including my brother Randy, were selected to go to this camp to identify, okay, who's there, who's what. Now, a couple of players that came to the camp, Grant Fuhr won, made the Edmonton Oilers. Okay, well, he's not able to play. Joe Sorella made the Colorado Avalanche. Okay, no, he can't play. Brian Bellows, Minnesota North Stars. No, he made Minnesota. So all of a sudden, the 60 list kind of got down. And we had a camp in Winnipeg. The tournament was going to be in St. Paul, Minneapolis, but we had a camp in Winnipeg, and we brought in the 30 of the best players of Canadian descent in there. We had Troy Murray of the University of North Dakota, James Patrik of the University of North Dakota. Kerry Wilson was playing pro in Finland, came home for Christmas, and was asked to come out and try it. We had players from the Ontario League, Western League, Quebec League, and our coach was Dave King. And he brought us all together and picked the 20, what he thought was the best players at that time in order to compete in this tournament. I was fortunate enough to make the team along with my brother, Randy. So we were two brothers, and to this day, we're the only two brothers ever to play for Team Canada at the same time to win a gold medal. So there's a little trivia for you. Anyway, so we come together to this team, and we play a couple exhibition games before the tournament. We play against the Manitoba Senior All-Stars. So there's a senior league in Manitoba, and they picked an all-star team, and that we played them twice. That was our two practice games before the tournament, because we'd all been playing with our own club teams, and we come together. Anyway, long story short, we beat the Finnish team the first game. We beat the Swedish team the second game. Now the third game is we got to play the Russians. And everybody says that the Russians are the best in the world. They've got their whole team, if they were allowed, would be playing in the NHL. And they had won the year before, and they'd won the previous 4 to 5 years before that. And to say the least, we were a little intimidated. They'd won their first two games. They'd clobbered teams. We're in Winnipeg because our first 3 games are Winnipeg before we moved down to St. Paul, Minneapolis. Now, that night happened to be Hockey Night in Canada. Boston Bruins were in town going to play the Winnipeg Jets. We'd won our first 2 games. So CBC says, hey, we got the trucks here. We're going to do a game tonight. Why don't we broadcast the afternoon Canada-Russia game? That'd be great. The whole country can see our best junior players playing. Yeah, that's great for everybody but us players. We're scared spitless. Yeah, we're going to be broadcast coast to coast, and we're going to get thumped in front of the whole country. Anyway, long story short, it didn't happen. We went out and we blitzed them. We played like possessed. We ended up winning 7-0, the worst defeat the Russians had ever had and still have ever had in the World Junior Championship. We now go across the line into the States at Minneapolis, St. Paul, and now we've got 3 more games to go. We got to play the U.S. team. Got a couple of guys named Chris Chelios, Phil Housley, John Van Beesbrook played net for him. Not household names at that time, but pretty good players, leading up to that, some Hockey Hall of Famers. We beat them by a goal. Our last 2 games, we've got the Swiss, we beat them. Now we got the Czech Republic. They had lost a game. We hadn't lost. So the last round robin game, because that's what it was back then, it was a round robin tournament. Whoever had the best record after round robin tournament won it. We needed a win or a tie. And we played in a small town in Rochester, Minnesota, in front of 2,000 screaming fans. Long story short, we're down going to the third period. We were able to tie it up. I scored the goal head goal to go up 3-2. They tied up 3, and as it turns out, we ended up tying the game 3-3. And we have 5 wins and a tie. They have 4 wins, a loss, and a tie, and we win the gold medal. And everybody had said it can't be done. Can't have an all-star team. Not going to work. You can't get guys to put their egos on the shelf for the good of the team. But I tell you what, and I'm so excited for our young player, Tanner Willick, who gets a chance to play in the Junior A World Hockey Championships. There's nothing like playing for the emblem on the front, the Maple Leaf. There's nothing like it. I played for minor hockey teams. I played for city teams. I played provincial teams. I played for NHL teams. But there's something about playing for your country that you will do what's needed. And I've said this a lot of times. I hope I never have to represent my country in war. I hope my kids and my grandkids, my great kids never have to do that. But I do hope that everyone at some point gets an opportunity to represent your country in whatever it happens to be, whether it's through sports or athletic, whether it's through dance, whether it's through music, whether it's through journalism, whatever. If you ever get a chance to represent your country in Canada, it's so powerful. And hopefully you can tell by my voice, it is so powerful feeling. We win the gold medal. The flagship of the international hockey was that time, whoever won the game, you line up in the blue lines. They play the national anthem if you're the winning team. We'd had that all the way through. It's the last game. Now, it was tied. We got presented the gold medals. We're on the blue line waiting for the gold medal. We're waiting. It finally comes down. They can't seem to get the recording to play. They don't have it. Come on, you got to get off the ice. The guys at the end of the rink are kicking the doors open. The Zamboni can come on. And we go, nope, we're not leaving. We want to hear that national anthem. Dave King's leaving on the bench. Guys, come on, let's get off the ice. Nope. And that's where this tradition started. Arm in arm on the blue line, somebody starts singing "Oh Canada." And we start singing, well, yelling, screaming, "Oh Canada." No accompaniment, no music. We got two French-speaking players, Pierre Roux and Paulo Boutillier. They're singing in French. Some guys down on this end, they started late, so it's kind of a cappella because they have not really caught up to what we're singing down here. This thing went on, it finished. The crowd who stayed cheered. One of my best memories of hockey, and it had nothing to do with playing the game. It was singing the national anthem. And now when you see Team Canada, I got a chance this past summer to watch our Canadian national team win the gold medal up in Edmonton, and seeing them on the blue line, arm in arm, singing "Oh Canada." Yeah, that's great. That's good stuff.
Mike, that was incredible. Like I chills up my spine hearing you speak about when you said playing for that emblem on the front. That is such an important thing that I think a lot of people need to understand, and especially at the age you were when you got to play these games. Think about, like, there's so much big development and storylines in your life that haven't happened yet, and you're playing out there for emotion. You're playing out there to represent your country, and it's incredible. But I wanted to touch on the team a little bit before we get away from World Juniors. And you told a couple great stories from your time there, but I could tell you're a pretty humble guy, because you didn't mention the fact that you led the team with 14 points in 7 games. That was you were playing some of the best hockey of your life, and that can't be understated. You had an incredible performance.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I was selected as the All-Star right winger and MVP of our team, and again, having the gold medal goal. Even though it put us ahead and they tied it. That gold medal is in my basement, and if anybody asks what's significance of that, I said, well, that's the gold medal I received for playing for Team Canada in the World Junior Championship. And the significance for me was not only being part of that team, but the goal I scored was the gold medal winning goal. And it's not like Crosby's goal in Vancouver to win the Olympic gold medals, but for me, it's a pretty prominent part of my, I guess, my history of playing with a national junior team, and a great bunch of guys. That's the other thing, is the tie-in. I mean, we were together as a team for about 10 days. But that bond, it's amazing how you run into one of those guys, or you talk to one of those guys, whether it's, maybe it's a phone call or text or email, or you see somebody, and it's like we just finished the game. The conversations pick up exactly where they left off. It's so comfortable. There's no awkwardness. You always ask about, hey, how you doing? What's new? How's your family? Stuff like that. But it's amazing. And and everybody's got a different memory of things. It's not that your memory fades. It's just that sometimes you remember things better. I'll start telling a story about, hey, do you remember that third game against the Swedes? And someone will go, oh my God, I forgot all about that. Yeah. But what about against the Russians in between periods? And you go, oh my goodness, I did that. Oh yeah, that did happen. I can't believe I forgot that. So those are good things to happen. It'd be the same as, I think, going back to high school reunion. Everybody has their memories of certain things, and then somebody will tell a story and you go, oh my gosh, that did happen. And I was there. So anyway, it's kind of cool.
So Mike, I completely agree, and I think you guys being able to trade stories on that when you bump into each other once in a while, say a couple of years goes by, and you bump into someone in a different place, I think that's pretty cool, because you get to relive it all through their eyes as well. But
and every year there's a World Junior Championship.
Yeah.
so the memories all come back. It's amazing. It's not like, they go away, because again, we got a World Junior Championship coming out in the Maritimes coming up, and as a alumni and somebody who's interested in hockey, I get excited about watching it. Yeah.
So I kind of have to ask a bit of a tough one, because
Sure.
I'm from Port Alberni, BC myself, and I noticed right away a very notable figure on that team was Paul Cyr.
Yeah,
and Paul Cyr passed away back in 2012, I believe.
Yeah. Rest his soul.
Yeah, he from what I heard, pretty incredible person, incredible athlete. People who take a look at his stat sheet, he he was one hell of a hockey player. Could you touch on Paul Cyr a little bit and tell me what kind of person he was?
Absolutely. I first run across Paul. He was playing for the old Victoria Cougars, and one of his teammates was Mark Morrison, and I was playing with Mark's older brother Doug in Lethbridge. But we played against each other. Although in the Western League you don't hit the other side, which the BC division has many times. We used to do it twice a year, twice there and twice at home. He was a dominant junior player, strong, physical, tough, could shoot the puck a ton, and then had a chance to play with him on the world junior team, national junior team. We won the gold medal together. He was a big part of our team that year. He was one of the few players that we had that combined that physical skill as far as being hard on the stick and hard on the puck and being hard on opponents, but could play offensively. A lot of us at that point, I was 6 feet, 185 pounds, and I had more of a finesse game. And yes, I could be physical if I had to, but that wasn't my game. But he had those things going, and that's why he was a first-round pick to the Buffalo Sabres. So after that particular year, he gets drafted by Buffalo, and I get to play with him with the Buffalo Sabres, and him and we had some great young players. Hannu Virta out of Finland, who was my roommate, was a great player. Dave Andrzejczyk, Sean McKenna, Gilles Hamel, Paul Cyr, John Tucker. We had a whole bunch of really young guys. Well, Phil Housley, Tom Brasso, and that, and we all were at that same age, and so it was kind of fun. But Paul Cyr, one thing I will say about Cyr is he lived life to the fullest. There's some guys, they kind of waltz through life. Paul didn't waltz through life. He banged down doors, and he was quiet in that he wasn't a loud, boisterous guy, but his play and the way he spoke volumes about, hey, I'm here. And daddy's home. Like if anything needed to be adjusted, Paul was and he was an instigator as far as getting the other team off their game because of how physical he was. But man, he could play offensively and shoot the puck. When we got to Buffalo, we had a defenseman, John Van Boxmeer, who was known for having one of the hardest shots in the league. And he played for Montreal Canadiens in their glory days back when they were winning Stanley Cups, came to Buffalo, eventually coached me in Rochester with the Rochester Americans, John, but he could really shoot a puck. And I remember there was always the first camp that was like, okay, well, there's this young kid coming, this young gunslinger. He can really shoot the puck. And everybody said, wow, he can't shoot as hard as Boxy. Yeah, he could. And it was to the point, even Van Boxmeer said eventually down the line, yeah, I probably need to pass the torch on to Searsy because he could really, really wire it. His stick was short. Most guys can really shoot it or taller and have the longer stick. You think of Zdeno Chara and some of those guys, even Al McInnes in Calgary, his stick was long. He had the real kind of the wedge swing. Searsy's stick was short. So to have a short stick, which means it's really extra stiff, to be able to use that stick and get power on it, you got to be a strong guy. And he was.
That's awesome, Mike. I know, we talked earlier, and I know you've got some things on your plate for the day. Yep. So I don't want to hold you too much longer, but I just had one more question for you before we wrap it up. I just wanted to ask if you had, if you could even address the kids that are going to end up making the Canadian World Junior team this year. And it's going to be, it looks already based on their camp roster, like it's going to be a good team. If you had the opportunity to impart some advice or just say something to that team that are going to go into Halifax and try and win the tournament this year, what would you say to them?
And it'll sound like it's coming from a coach more than a player, but it's more coming from experience. I think, you're trying to make the team. Then you get the notice you've made the team. And now there's this relief and like, okay, I've made the team, and now it's about becoming a good teammate, it's becoming a good player and help my team win. And don't get me wrong, winning's a part. Winning is if you're playing hockey in Canada. I mean, here we're watching the World Cup. How important is it to winning for the Moroccan nation? They're in the semifinals. Like, this is unbelievable. The first African team ever to get into the semifinals. And it's not a big country called Morocco. So it is about winning. But what I would say to them, I would say, enjoy the journey, enjoy the trip, be grateful, be humble, but enjoy not only the good, because there's going to be good, but there's not going to be some good, but that's still okay because you're there and you're a part of it. I think we look so much at getting to the destination. Sometimes we don't enjoy the journey along the way. And I know it's hard because there's a lot of expectation. There'll be some pressure on both self and from, hockey and a nation that, to do well and be good. But you know what? We all do our best work, no matter what it is, when we're having fun and enjoying it. Whether it's doing a podcast, whether it's playing hockey, whether it's relationships with your family, your kids, whether it's your employees you work with, if you're enjoying what you're doing, you're going to do good. And I think sometimes the moment can get us in the point where we're not enjoying it. It's not like it's work, but boy, I'm never not having a lot of fun with it. No. So that's what I would say. I say, you know what, guys, enjoy the trip, enjoy the journey. Put a smile on your face. Whatever happens is going to happen, but you can dictate how you are and what you are and how you handle things. And sometimes handling adversity will be just as important as handling the success that's going to come during the tournament. And never quit and be the best you can be, whatever that is. And if it's being a good teammate, maybe some of these players aren't going to be have as much impact as far as playing time, but that doesn't mean you still can't be a good teammate and cheer on your teammates and be supportive and those kind of things, because that's what makes a team. It's not just the people that play all the top minutes to score the goals. It's everybody, and you need everybody, the coaching staff, training staff, medical staff, anybody involved with that team. It's going to be pretty important for everybody to be good, to be whatever you do. And last but not least, remember, you're playing for the emblem, right? You're playing for this. And if you can't get up for playing for this, you can't get up to play.
All right, Mike, I think I speak for both James and I to say that you were absolutely incredible for our interview today.
Thank you.
I really, and I, like I said, I appreciate you so much. I obviously knew you were good, you're knowledgeable and you were very good at articulating your thoughts and your understanding of the game from the broadcasts we've already done together, and we're going to continue to do good together. Yeah. But yeah, no, James and I are really lucky to have you on, and I know he's going to want to say thank you to you as well.
Well, you know what, first, James, you know what, thank you for the opportunity. I appreciate you let me tell a little bit of my story and my viewpoint, and it doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It just is mine. But I appreciate the opportunity. So thank you guys.
No, I agree. It's just telling stories is why we talk, why we do what we do. And just getting to hear the stories from you, so much passion, Mike. Like it was really, really interesting, especially being from Port Alberni myself and getting to hear that about Paul Cyr, he never a passenger, always living life to its fullest. That was really cool to hear, and I really, really do appreciate that. And I think people listening will appreciate that as well, because I know I have a couple close friends from my hometown that we all went to the rink and saw the picture of him with a puck from one of his first couple goals or something like that. He's a pretty iconic character in the lore of our hometown. So I really, really do appreciate all that. And I think watching the World Juniors this year, after you talking about playing for that emblem on your chest, it's going to be all that much more special.
Yeah, well, thank you. And you know what, I and thank you for bringing up Paul. We do need to remember the people that aren't with us at a time, and you know what, that junior national team that I played with, we're all brothers in arms, and Paul isn't with us anymore, but we certainly haven't forgotten. So thank you for reminding me. I appreciate it.
Perfect. Well, cheers, Mike. Thanks again.
Okay, cheers. You guys have a great day.
And you as well.
All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah, I don't think we hyped that up enough at all. Like that was
awesome, dude.
Oh man. Like, ugh. And he does my color, right? And so I know he's knowledgeable, and I know he's good at articulating his hockey thoughts, hockey knowledge. And so I did have high expectations for him when he agreed to do an interview and we set this whole thing up. My expectations weren't high enough, man. He blew it out of the water just with the stories he told. And, my favorite part is him talking about that 1982 gold medal Team Canada singing the national anthem on the blue line. That's the first Canadian team to ever win it. Beat the Soviet Union, as he mentioned, in the group stage. The Soviet Union had won every iteration of the World Juniors except for one at that point. Sweden had won the year prior, but the Soviets had won every single other one. And they crushed him in the group. Mike talking about how he scored the go-ahead goal in the last game and that pretty much clinched them the gold. And yeah, that was awesome. Wow. Right. Like the whole time I'm sitting there listening to him talk, I'm like, this is phenomenal. I'm enjoying this.
At one point I got stuck in like Penguins of Madagascar mode. Just smile and wave, boys. I couldn't really stop listening to him. I found there were times that I wanted to be a bit more conversational with him, but as soon as he told these stories, I wanted to just let him talk, give this guy the floor, like take your time, tell me all of the stories. And my favorite part about it is I love the way he touched on the connection with his teammates. You could tell he felt a very special way about everyone that he played with. And the stories he told about going into that that established veteran filled Sabres locker room with a few young guys coming up as well, talking about being in the room with Gilbert Perreault, same room as Lindy Ruff. Like, it was very cool. And I think it's hard for me to pick a favorite for my favorite moment from that interview, but the Paul Sear stuff was pretty special and hit home for me. And home literally and figuratively. That's my hometown. And but I think the most important part and the part that sent chills up my spine, as I said in the interview, was when he was talking about after they get their gold medals, arm in arm, singing along to the national anthem and representing that emblem on your chest because that's your country. You get out and play for Canada, and if you're not getting up for that, then there must be something missing. That was pretty cool, Aidan. I had a great time, but I understand that you have a new game for me because this isn't the Great Canadian Hockey Podcast without another game to play. What do we got?
Yeah, different spin on the trivia. We did career trajectories every episode so far, and that's not something I want to go away from per se, because I have really enjoyed it so far. This is one that I think if I would struggle with a lot more than you're going to struggle with it. We've done this before, you and I, in the past, and when you've asked me, it's been largely educated guesses, but I know you're pretty sharp with these. So what I'm going to do, this is Finish That Trade is the name of this game. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 3 trades, and as the usual setup goes, in easy, medium, hard order. The trades will have a date, 2 teams involved, and every piece of the trade except for one. The piece in each of these instances is a player. You will know, of course, where the player went to from what team. I think easy, medium, hard is going to be easy for you, but I don't want to jinx it. I think you're gonna. I think you're gonna be quite good at this because, like I said, we've done this before. You and I just, killing time at BCIT, and you've been a boss at this. So I'll start us off with the easy one.
You're pumping my tires so hard, man. I'm scared. Yeah, you said you don't want to jinx me, but you're jinxing me so hard.
Let's see. So starting with the one that I dubbed as the easy of the 3, trade made on February the 19th, 2011 to the Colorado Avalanche goes Eric Johnson, Jay McClement, and a first-round pick. To the St. Louis Blues goes Chris Stewart, a second-round pick, and what player?
Kevin Shattenkirk.
Bingo. No editing there. He got that immediately, so that's easy. All right.
As soon as you said Eric Johnson, I knew that it was okay. I have to say Chris Stewart or Kevin Shattenkirk. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. So April the 3rd, 2013 is the medium level trade on this. To the Columbus Blue Jackets go Marian Gaborik, Blake Parlett, and Stephen Delisle to the New York Rangers, Derek Dorsett, John Moore, a 6th-round pick, and which player?
Brandon Dubinsky.
Oh,
Tim Erickson?
Derek Brassard.
Oh, damn. I thought Brassard went through the other way. Interesting. Oh, I got mixed up. All right. I was too confident Brandon Dubinsky. One
Yeah,
for two already.
one for two.
I peaked early.
Well, and this one is more. This one is more. I made this one hard because it would be the hardest for me. I don't know if it's going to be the hardest for you,
Oh,
though.
Dubinsky went in the Nash deal to Columbus.
Yeah, that was it. It was the
Oh,
return.
I got the Nash deal and the Gabrick deal mixed up. Oh,
I think Dubinsky was still on the Jackets in 2013 because and correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't 2013 that Columbus-Pittsburgh series where Dubinsky just was all over Crosby the whole time for Columbus?
yes. And you need to say that with a whisper because my Penguins fan friend is here. And if that comes up, he's going to storm into the room and start going off.
Okay. So the heart of the trades for you to go 2 for 3. Neither of us have gone worse than 2 for 3 in these trivia games, James. So I think the pressure's on here.
Uh,
September the 12th, 2009.
uh-huh.
To San Jose, Danny Heatley and a 5th-round pick. To Ottawa, Jonathan Chichu, a 2nd-round pick, and which player?
Milan Mihalik.
There you go. 2 for 3.
That feels like a weight off my shoulders.
It does, James. And you know what? Like, I'm fully confident you're getting that if you take like 30 extra seconds.
And we also need to keep in mind, no excuses, because I'm never going to make an excuse for getting something wrong here. But it is worth taking into account that I did have a fairly late night and hosted the Christmas party for a bunch of friends here last night. So I am it's my Michael Jordan flu game right now. I'm doing my best that I can.
All right. So, I mean, it's up to you if you want to bring me one of those moving forward. You can just keep in mind you are, I think, historically been better at that than I have. So adjust your difficulty accordingly. Speaking of future episodes, we've got episodes lined up until, I mean, there's only one more we're coming out with before Christmas, and then one on Boxing Day is coming out. So before Christmas, we're going to have an interview with David Brandes. He is a defenseman playing in the Alberta Junior Hockey League, a Sacred Heart University commit in the NCAA. Brandes will join the podcast to talk everything junior hockey, from his experience playing in Junior A, his experience, of course, getting an NCAA college commitment, how that works and everything. And then kind of I want to talk to him about, he's going down the Junior A, the college route. He's not going down the CHL route. So I wanted to talk to him about that, talk to him about if that was a decision he had to make. We haven't recorded this interview, obviously, yet. So we will, we'll let you listen to it. That should be out on, next Monday, 1 week from the release of this one. And then the Monday after is Boxing Day. James and I have a World Junior special coming up. We are going to rank the top 10 World Junior moments of the last 10 years on Boxing Day, on day 1 of the 2023 World Juniors. So stay tuned for that. I know me and James are excited about that, and yeah.
And we've already had a debate on this. Sadly, 10 years does not have an exception for the Jordan Eberle, John Tavares, Cody Hodgson year. I understand. I'm probably the only one who cares this much about this, but that will get its moment to shine. That's just not part of the game we're playing for that episode.
No, I think before we dive into the top 10 and the last 10, let's just talk about, the years prior, because years prior were loaded with great moments. You mentioned the Jordan Eberle ones. The Jordan Eberle one that gets, the most notoriety is that one against Russia, obviously. But the Jordan Eberle one that, I think gets overlooked just because it didn't end in Canadian gold was he did it again the next year. He tied the gold medal game late against the States with a goal on Jack Campbell, which was alleviated by John Carlson's overtime winner that year, bringing the States just their second, I believe, World Junior Championship at the time. They've since added 3 more to that, and we will discuss all that on the 26th. So stay tuned, subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Yeah.
We almost missed something. We can't miss it. how's Aidan feeling about Portugal? Where are we at, buddy?
Oh, James, like, okay, so this is now, okay, let me count. So one,
You
two,
instantly have a
three,
different tone of voice now that we're talking about Portugal.
4, 5, 6, 7. This is the seventh major tournament I've watched this team at now. They have not won 6 of them, including this one, because they lost the quarterfinal to Morocco. None of those 6 destroyed me the way this one did. I like, and people, people that I talk to about football, and I talk to about this sport, and they ask me, like, oh, so you're Portuguese, you're a big Cristiano Ronaldo fan. And my answer is yes, always. But my answer is yes, maybe in a different way than somebody else that's a fan of a player might be. It's not necessarily how much I love this guy or this player. It's not the same way I love him the way I love Pedersen, for instance, for the Canucks, or the way I'm a big Cale Makar fan. It's more just this person has done so much for this thing I love, and this thing I love is the Portuguese national team. And it's just he's contributed so much to that and so much to the sport in the country beyond his own accolades. It's just what he's contributed to this thing as a whole. And I I came into this tournament knowing it was going to be the last tournament I ever watch him in, and I knew every game I'm watching him might be the last game I'm watching him play. And maybe it was just because I was underestimating Morocco a little bit. Maybe it was just because it was it was for me an 8 a.m. start on a Saturday morning. They're down 1-0 in the last minutes, and it just hits me like a truck. Oh my God. This idol I grew up with, this person I grew up watching, this person that I've never seen Portugal in a major tournament without. Like, this is the last minutes I will ever watch him play, and there will not be another one like him for this team. Canada hockey, there's no equivalent, because Canada hockey, for every Joe Sakic, then there's Crosby. For every Crosby, then there's McDavid, and for every McDavid, then there's Bedard, right? And they're always surrounded by superstars. There hasn't been, and there won't be another Ronaldo for Portugal, period. It's not going to happen. So I spent most of Saturday just in pieces, quite frankly. And we've had the dive on how I've been feeling, and this is the last episode, so it was either going to end in me being just over the moon excited, or absolutely destroyed. And unfortunately it has to end in the latter.
So, I do feel for you there. As a sports fan, that's something I really understand. And I mean, I every time I go on TikTok right now, it's like dramatic music, and what's that one incredible commentator's name?
Peter Drury. As much
Yes.
as English
Oh,
commentators are the best, until they're doing England games, in which then they're suddenly the worst for 90 minutes. But Peter Drury's consistently always the best, no matter what.
so it'll have his voice just from multiple different games, and it would have like the dream send-off matchup of a World Cup final of Messi and Ronaldo against each other. And you know, it there was a slim chance that was going to happen. It could have been possible, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, they win this game against Morocco, and they're in a semifinal against France, while Argentina's in the other semifinal against Croatia. So the dream was still on, and yeah, no, as much as watching Messi Ronaldo would have been a spectacle to behold, it was, anything that Portugal could have got their hands on this time around, it would have been amazing. And no matter who they beat to do it, it would have been special. And yeah, it's gonna be a while, I think, till I get over this one.
So what is it now, Aiden? Now is it Vamos Argentina?
I 100%, if you had asked me like on Thursday, yes, without a doubt, I would love to see Messi win a major or win the World Cup. He hasn't done it yet. He's a superb player and he deserves it. They played one of the absolutely most garbage games of football I've ever seen against Holland in the quarterfinals. And just, yeah. And the way I think, if you're a regular podcast listener by now, you picked up that I'm big on respect, and I'm big on respect in sport. And the Argentina team treated the Netherlands with absolutely no respect for 120 minutes and more in that game. So until then, I would have said yes. Now I'm a huge Luka Modric fan. He's a midfielder for Croatia. This is his swan song too. This is his last major tournament, almost for sure. I'd love to see Croatia win this World Cup. I love so many players on their team. They lost in the final 4 years ago. I got really into their team then, and yeah, for me it's Croatia. I'd love to see Modric get his send off, hoisting that trophy high. Would be Croatia's first World Cup, their first major trophy since they were Yugoslavia.
I have to say, I just have this feeling France is going to take it all and dominate.
They're the favorites for me right now.
Yeah.
They're the strongest team. Kylian Mbappe is playing unreal. They beat England 2-1 in the game that, honestly, it was right after the Portugal-Morocco game. I really needed that. I really needed to see Harry Kane send his penalty to the moon. Just that was such a, in a day that I was so upset, that genuinely brought not only a smile, but a fit of laughter to me that I needed on Saturday, watching him just sky it and watching England go out again. It rivals watching the Leafs lose in the first round as my favorite recurring sports tradition is to watch England fail at a major tournament. So yeah, it was a silver lining on a dark day.
Wow, Aidan, you probably didn't know. I was rooting for England.
Not
I
anymore.
was. I'm
Not
actually,
anymore.
I mean, I'm a sports fan in general, and it's not my main sport, but I follow the storylines as much as I can. And um, I really enjoy Harry Kane. I think he's sick, but yeah, that was tough. That was tough. I don't doubt that. Like, obviously, I don't have like major family roots there. I'm a mutt. I have family roots everywhere. Like, I just cheer for good games, but I was cheering for England, so it did kind of suck to see them. You're like looking around the room. You're like, oh, there's so much disappointment in this guy.
I mean, I got my guy.
Hmm. Very
I
nice.
love I love Bukayo Saka. He's super talented. He played really well in the game against France. So I'm cheering for him. I'm cheering for him to succeed. But overall, the yeah, no, I stark opposite to you on that front. I was happy to see France advance in that game.
Well, with that, I think we've covered quite a few bases. We'll probably touch on the World Cup as it draws to a close at some point, just for a minute or two, because this is, in terms of sporting tournaments, I'd say it's probably as big as it gets.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, like I don't really think anything in the world is bigger. I think Olympics even comes second. So yeah, I think with that, we are gonna call it quits on the episode, and let's roll that outro. Thanks, everybody.